Price discrimination is one way in which monopolies can leverage their market power to make even more profit than what we showed previously. So we showed previously that monopolies will typically earn profits because the barriers to entry are going to prevent new firms from coming in and competing with them. And the real problem with monopolies isn't the profit, it's actually the deadweight loss caused, the market inefficiency caused by the monopolist. Okay? So price discrimination is one way that the firm can actually, a monopolist can go out and they can actually increase their profits, and what we'll actually show is it will lead to an improvement in market efficiency. So not only is the firm happy with this because they get higher profits, but from society's point of view, this actually isn't bad, so you want to kind of lose the connotation. When you think of the word discrimination, most people think of kind of a bad thing, treating people unfairly. In this case, don't think that way. Don't think of discrimination as bad. Discrimination is actually going to improve the market outcome. It's going to make things more efficient. Okay? So when we say price discrimination, what we're talking about is the business practice of selling the exact same good at different prices to different consumers. Okay? So it has to be the same good, but selling the same good to different people at different prices. Okay? So movie theaters, airlines, there's lots of examples of price discrimination out there. Okay? So hypothetically, let's say that there's a publisher who has paid an author $2 million for the rights to publish their book. The publisher knows that this particular author has 100,000 die-hard fans who are willing to pay $30 to read the author's book. In addition, there are 400,000 other readers who are willing to pay $5 for this particular book. Okay. So the publisher is essentially a monopolist in that they own the rights to this book, and the copyright on the material in the book means that there's no competition. So if they were just a monopolist and they couldn't price discriminate, they would have two choices. They can charge $30, in which case they'll sell 100,000 copies. They'll make $3 million in revenue. They spent $2 million to sign the author, so they'd make $1 million profit. Alternatively, they could charge $5, in which case they'd sell to, and you got to be a little careful here, there's 100,000 willing to pay 30, there's another 400,000 willing to pay 5, so 500,000 readers will buy it at a price of $5. Okay, so they would make $2.5 million minus the $2 million that they paid the author. Their profit would be $500,000, 500,000. Okay, so the firm will then choose, if those are its only two options, to charge a price of $30 because its profit will be $1 million instead of $500,000. Okay? Now we talked about how with the monopolist the problem is really the deadweight loss they cause. Well, in this case, the deadweight loss is the 400,000 readers that were willing to pay $5 each. Okay, so their willingness to pay was $5. The cost, we're sort of assuming that the cost of producing the book is $0, that the only cost was $2 million to sign the author. So you've got 400,000 readers willing to pay $5, so you've got $2 million that's sort of wasted. That's out there, people are willing to pay it, but they can't find the book for $5. Okay? So price discrimination is the publisher in this case looking for a way to charge two different prices. Okay? So they could, if you think about book publishing, they could charge a price of $30 and sell a hardback book, and then charge $5 for a paperback book. Now, if you think of the good being sold as the story in the book, they're selling the same good. Okay, so yes, the hardback has, it's more durable, that sort of thing, but really the story is the same. And so what they end up doing, because the die-hard readers willing to pay $30, if it was available for $5, they'd probably buy it for $5. So what they do is they release the hardback book about 6 months before they release the paperback version, in order to get those 100,000 fans to buy the hardback because they want to read it right away. And then later on, they'll collect the other 2 million later on. So what they end up with is $5 million in revenue, $2 million in cost, and their profit is $3 million when they're done. Okay? So what's necessary for a firm to price discriminate? Okay, first, the firm needs market power. That's why we didn't talk about this with perfect competition. They need market power. With perfect competition, there's no market power. Those firms can't choose their price, so how are they supposed to choose different prices for different groups? Okay, so they need market power so that they can set their own price. They need customers with different willingness to pay, and they need to be able to identify them. Okay, so they need to know I've got 100,000 willing to pay 30, 400,000 willing to pay 5, and I'm going to be able to figure out who is who. Okay, so like for a movie theater, I know students and adults are willing to pay different amounts. I know their elasticities are different. So I can identify them by making the student show me an ID card when they show up to buy their ticket. Or if I'm an airline, I make you stay over Saturday night to determine that you're a vacation traveler, not a business traveler. Okay? And finally, you have to keep customers from trading with one another. So you have to prevent students from standing from the movie theater, buying out all the tickets for the student price, and then turning around and giving them to the adults at a price less than what the movie theater would charge. Okay? So you got to prevent that trade. And one way of doing that is to print on the ticket student, and then theoretically you could check their ID before they use the ticket to get in. Or on an airline ticket, you print the person's name so that they can't then give it to someone else. Okay? Now, price discrimination is not illegal, nor is it hateful. Okay? It's not discrimination in the normal sense, where I'm arbitrarily discriminating against someone based on their race or gender or religion or something like that. It's charging different groups different prices based on their willingness to pay. So it's not something arbitrary that you have no control over. It's something that you have absolute control over. It's how much you value the good at. Okay, so it's not illegal, it's not hateful, it's not a bad thing like what someone normally thinks of when they hear the term discrimination. Okay, so now what happens if we price discriminate? So we're going to take a very rare case, but it's possible, of perfect price discrimination. Okay? Perfect price discrimination is if a firm can charge each customer their own unique price based on their own willingness to pay. So instead of a movie theater grouping people as students, adults, that sort of thing, it would be charging each and every person that walks up to the ticket booth their own unique price. Okay? Now, that's pretty unrealistic, but if you think of two examples where it kind of comes close, car dealerships. So there's the sticker price, but you go in and you haggle with them, and there's probably lots of different prices that the same car could be sold at, depending on how good of a negotiator you are. Okay? College education is actually another example here, where you fill out your FAFSA form, you fill out your application to the university, and then they give you different financial aid packages depending on your situation. So everyone might pay a different kind of net price for college education. Okay, so perfect price discrimination is charging everyone their own price. So how does that differ from a normal monopoly outcome? Okay, so two graphs here. Okay, first, here's demand, marginal revenue, marginal cost, and let's just throw on average total cost. Okay. So there's our situation. We've got marginal cost, average total cost, marginal revenue, demand. This is a normal monopolist. Okay. They set marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. They get that quantity, called Q star. They come up here and they set price P star, and their profit is that box, so there's profit. And here is the inefficiency caused by the monopolist, deadweight loss. And really up here, do it in horizontal blue lines. This up here is the area below demand and above price, so that's our consumer surplus that we talked about before. So we've got consumer surplus, profit, and we've got deadweight loss. Okay. So that's a normal monopolist. Now, what does a price discriminating monopolist look like compared to this normal monopolist? Okay. Well, here's quantity, here's price, here's demand. Okay. Now, if I'm able to perfectly price discriminate, if I'm able to charge everyone their own unique price, if we go back and think about what the monopolists did to get their marginal revenue, we said there are two effects. There's an output effect and a price effect. Output effect says selling more increases total revenue. Price effect says to sell more, you have to lower your price for each additional unit. So marginal revenue is below demand because I have to keep lowering my price to sell more units. Okay? Well, if I can perfectly price discriminate, that's no longer the case. If I can perfectly price discriminate, now everyone gets their own price. So now demand is equal to marginal revenue. Okay? So if I put back up the table that we developed previously, quantity and price are my demand. And if I can perfectly price discriminate, I'll charge $14 to the first customer, $13 to just the second customer, not both customers, $12 to the third customer, $11 to the fourth customer, and $10 to the fifth customer. So if I sell 3 units, my total revenue would be 14 to customer 1, 13 to customer 2, and 12 to customer 3. So 14 plus 13 would be 27. So I'd make $39 profit, or total revenue, sorry. So I'd make more money by price discriminating. My profit will end up going up. Marginal revenue then is equal to price. Whenever the firm can perfectly price discriminate, marginal revenue equals price. Okay? Now price is going to change. There's no one price, everyone gets their own price. But if I can perfectly price discriminate, marginal revenue equals price, which means marginal revenue and demand are one and the same. Okay? Now for simplicity, just because we don't want to get into integrals and calculus and that sort of stuff, over here I'm going to put, here's marginal cost and average total cost. I'm just going to make them flat just for simplicity. Okay? Now if we had a downward sloping marginal revenue, we'd get a picture, the marginal cost being flat and average total cost being flat doesn't really make any difference. Just makes our life easier in terms of looking at the picture. Okay, if we drew a downward sloping marginal revenue underneath it like the graph on the left, we'd get essentially the same picture. So nothing's really changed. But now I'm still going to set marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. It's just now marginal revenue equals demand. So now this whole thing is profit. Okay. Profit goes up. Consumer surplus goes away, but deadweight loss also goes away. So from society's point of view, this is actually a good thing. The market is more efficient, there is no deadweight loss. It doesn't matter in terms of efficiency that consumer surplus goes away. Consumers are still getting to buy the good at a price they're willing to pay. They're just not getting any surplus out of the deal. Profits going up to the firms, which firms like. Deadweight loss disappears, so the market is now efficient. Okay, so if the firm can perfectly price discriminate, the market's completely efficient. If they can price discriminate, but it's not perfect price discrimination where everyone gets their own price, so something like an airline or a movie theater, then you're going to get less deadweight loss, but it's still going to be present. It's not going to completely go away. Okay, so you can sort of see where the extreme case, perfect price discrimination, deadweight loss goes away, and the market is now efficient again.